has never been a more important time to move in a vegan direction. Whether you're ready to start, restart, or re-energize your vegan or plant-based practice, this podcast is for you. I'm Michelle Olander, life coach, vegan, ADHD matriarch, travel lover, and smoothie loather. And I know that it's the details that get in the way of your vegan journey. But I like to believe that the obstacle is always the way. So every week we meet here where I translate the tools of life coaching and Stoic philosophy. I bring you actionable tips, some laughs, interesting guests, and vegan ideas for everyone at any age. All to help you veg your best. Episode 244, Toastmasters to Hummus. Kimberly Winters on finding your vegan voice. Hi, my veg your besties. Welcome to May. We made it. Where's the year going? It's the first Tuesday in May when this episode drops. My episodes so far have always dropped on Tuesdays. And today's guest is another one of the guests I feel like will be my friend forever. I hope she feels the same way. It's Kimberly Winters. She's a vegan coach, and she's the host of Did You Bring the Hummus? That great title. We're going to talk about Kimberly's journey into podcasting, how it began as a Toastmasters project before she'd even listened to a podcast herself. It was her first experience with podcasting, was making one herself. She admits she started out terrified, having to publish a full hour of content for strangers. That was the project that she had signed up for, but she leaned into the discomfort, and now, nearly 100 episodes later, she's found her voice and a global community. Kimberly's focus is on the philosophy and ethics of veganism, not just what's on your plate, and she helps people understand, well, the deeper reasons behind their choices and how to communicate those values without bumming out everybody else. You're going to hear her remind us that every choice, all of them, no matter how small, can be steps towards helping rather than harming. And you never know who's watching or whose life you might be influencing just by showing up your own way. Kimberly will also share some practical advice for businesses and restaurants and hospitality concerns. If you're a business owner and say no one ever asks for vegan options, Kimberly says it's probably because vegans have already checked out what you've got and chosen to go elsewhere with all their friends. So her tip, small swaps like using vegetable stock or vegan butter can make your menu more inclusive and profitable without scaring off the normies. Anyway, we're going to hear a whole lot about that because Kimberly's approach is just so beautifully rooted in storytelling and honesty. And she's learned the hard way that trying to convert others doesn't work. But sharing your story, being open, that plants seeds that grow in unexpected ways. Okay, so many great nuggets in the conversation. So I'm going to be quiet and see you on the other side. Kimberly Winters, welcome to Veg Your Best. Did you bring the hummus?
Every chance I get. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you on, Kimberly. It's been, I think we've had like a year to try to put this together, schedules and all. And in the introduction, everybody just heard that you have a wonderful podcast called Did You Bring the Hummus? And you were kind enough to invite me on it recently, and that'll be out at some point. I am so excited to talk to you because as we were just chatting, you and I became vegan. I believe we committed really in the same year, 2015. Mm-hmm. We both started podcasts in 2020. What the heck was going on with you and me?
Right? We somehow knew we'd meet in 2025 and we needed something to chat about.
That's right. That's right. And I wonder if it's an example of just the momentum that's happening in the world. And 2020, more than 10 of my guests have said their big projects began in 2020 with that change in lifestyle that happened that year.
Yeah.
Was that part of
Yeah.
yours?
It actually wasn't, which is so funny. My podcast came out of a Toastmasters project. So I was looking at the next level in my pathway, and the pathway is the education piece that we use in Toastmasters. And I was looking at what the options were, and one of them was, I think, leading and creating an event and then writing a speech about what you went through to create that event, what worked, what didn't. And I thought, what am I going to do this event with my husband and I and our cats in our living room? Because we weren't leaving the house back then, right? So I looked at everything else and I saw there was an option for a podcast. Well, in 2020, I had never listened to a podcast. I knew what they were, but I wasn't listening to them. So when this came up, I thought, this feels really scary. And that's kind of the whole point of me being at Toastmasters, is to do the things that scare me, but I know are good for me. And so I thought, okay, let's take a look at this. And it was the project requirement was that you had to post an hour's worth of content. It could be broken up into different episodes, but it had to total 60 minutes out into the world for strangers to listen to. And then you had to go to your club and present a 2 to 3 minute speech about how it went, and then share a 5 minute clip from your 60 minutes. Whew. I was like, that is a lot. 60 minutes. So I thought, well, I better talk about something that means something to me. And I'd been vegetarian since 2001. And as you said, had gone vegan in 2015. So at this point, it's my entire personality. So I thought, I've got to talk about veganism. And that's just how it started out. It was just me at first, just doing kind of informational episodes. My husband did join me for a couple. And then I thought, I want to start talking to vegans. And now most of it, episode 100 will come out with season 6, which your episode will be part of very soon. And here we are, almost 100 episodes later, and I've had a chance to chat with incredible vegans like yourself, doing amazing work in the world, and it is everything to me.
Well, it's astonishing how many people I talk to where that transition to being vegan or sometimes vegetarian has informed it's not just their eating, it's not just their buying habits. It really has changed a whole trajectory beyond that. And so you mentioned Toastmasters. I don't suppose everybody knows what Toastmasters is. So before we go on, give them a little 60-second advertisement, public service advertisement.
Toastmasters is an international not-for-profit group that trains people in public speaking. So you meet as groups. They're all around the world, and your local club might meet once a month, twice a month, like mine does, every week. Some of them do. And it's very structured, both in the learning process, which, as I mentioned, is called the pathway. And you learn how to build speeches. You learn about storytelling, effective gestures, filler words, and you learn how to structure speeches. And then you give those speeches in front of the group that you've joined. And we have evaluators. So someone is assigned to kind of assess your speech, how it went, what you excelled at, where you could use a little bit of help. And then also, I just had 2 filler words right there. There's always someone in the meeting who's counting those so that you start to become aware of them. And you can do it in a really kind way. So I know some people might be afraid of, like, oh no, what if someone tells me that I had 100 ums in my 7-minute speech? Well, now the next time you probably maybe will only have 90, and it just gets better from there. But it is very structured. Everything is based on like a time, so that you also learn how to speak within a time frame. Because any chance that we get to share a message, if someone has asked us to do that, they probably have a timeline. So whether you're giving a speech for 5 minutes or a keynote for 25 or 45, you've got to know how to stay within that time frame and get the feel for time as well. So it builds so much more than just like, this is how you structure a speech. This is what you should say when you get up there. It is like a holistic approach to learning how to be an effective public speaker.
Well, I feel that in my work, you talked about the filler words. Over the past 229, whatever, 30 podcasts through the seasons, my filler words have changed as I've become more, noticed them. And some of them, I swear, are like drinking games. I say them so much. It's like just every time Michelle says so,
Yep, that's mine too.
is it? Yeah, it's
It is.
so. Now, you've also said you leaned into scary with the podcast. Famously, public speaking is something people are terrified of. Was that what drew you
Yes.
to Toastmasters?
Yes. Yeah. I was doing some presentations more verbal than anything at work, like kind of over a WebEx without video and without presentation, but I was kind of delivering information to large groups over the phone. And I thought I could be better at this, make it more interesting. There's nothing for them to look at. So I really have to learn how to use my voice. So that was part of it. And then I also had just completed a coaching certification, and I really wanted to shift out of a full-time job in a corporate setting, which I'm still working on, and move into doing kind of my own thing. And I thought, well, if you want to be able to tell people about what you can offer and how you can help them, you have to be able to talk to them. And I wanted so badly to be able to be up in front of people. But when I would do it, I would freeze. I would get that lump in my throat. And it would almost become painful to eke out any kind of sound, let alone words. So I thought, okay, I've got to figure this out. So I started looking at different types of offerings out there. And you can find some very pricey public speaking courses that are, a week long. You go into New York City and you spend $5,000 and you're supposed to be, ready for your keynote at the end of 5 days. And it's just so absurd because you can't be ready for your keynote, not effectively anyway, in 5 days. So when I found Toastmasters and knew that it would be a group twice a month that I could be in front of, which was the scariest part of it all, I said, okay, this is going to push me. And it actually took me 3 tries to even get to a meeting. Like I would make it out to my car and turn around and go back inside. And then I made it out the next time, got my hand on the car door and turned around and went back inside. And the third time I got in and was like, okay, just go. And I did. And now look at me.
What a message. I think we see all around us, we see people's afters. We don't see people's like crying and terror and
Yep.
crying up all night and hyperventilating in the bathroom. And we don't see
Yes, to
that.
all of that.
So it is interesting to me when I see people recognize what they consider to be not a strength. It might not be a weakness, but it might just be an indication of where the next step or the next level of growth is for them. And in this such a busy world, squirrel, 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 I mean, you somehow stayed focused on it.
It's like the one thing.
Oh, and the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And being vegan.
Right.
And you're still
So maybe
married.
there's more than one thing.
As a coach, I have to draw your attention to that.
That's good. Very good, Michelle. Thank you.
So speaking of coach, let us get a sense of what it is you do with your coaching. And because I think what's interesting about you and why I really wanted you on the podcast was you have these several different I'm sure you have multitudes more, but you have these several different threads in your work that are, it's very interesting.
Hmm.
You're a coach, you are a consultant, which I think I mentioned in the beginning, in the introduction. You're a consultant in hospitality environments for how people, how businesses can better accommodate and understand the needs of vegans when they come in
Hmm.
to their businesses. And you are a president of your is it, do you call it a local Toastmasters
Yeah, my community club. I'm
community?
the immediate past president and current vice president of education.
Okay, so so there's a lot to do there because I think
Yeah.
public speaking is what, as vegans, many of the people I talked to were uncomfortable, especially in the beginning of.
Hmm.
Sometimes we think we don't deserve that word, vegan. So
Right.
how do we ask for it? And but without putting ourselves in a situation where, oh yes, but look at what you're carrying and where you're sitting and your car seats, and we don't want to be distracted by all the dissonance in there. We're just trying to make a new choice, a better choice
Hmm.
each day. So that's a lot about our communication style. So I would like to basically start with, as a coach, where is your emphasis and what kind of people do you typically help?
Yeah, thank you. So my emphasis is on helping people understand what veganism is, why people do it, and specifically to the person I'm working with, why they are doing it from the philosophical perspective. So understanding the ethics, the definition of the word veganism. I'm not creating, meal plans or giving nutritional advice that's completely outside of my expertise. But diving into our connection, what it means to be vegan, how we can show up as vegans, and how we can communicate that is really my sweet spot, if you will.
And when people are pre-coaching with you
Hmm.
and then post-coaching with you, what are some of the things that they have, if not mastered, they've leaned into or gotten a little more familiar with?
Yeah. Well, certainly fully understanding veganism. So often when we talk about veganism, we're so focused on what are you eating? And we forget that being vegan really kind of is like a guideline of choices that we make. Because every single choice we make every single day, we can choose to harm or to help. And so every time we're choosing something that helps, we're choosing a vegan option. And we are learning each time we do that what that means, deepening that connection. And then also, the more we understand these decisions we're making, the easier it becomes to communicate why we do it, why it matters to us, even if the person we're talking to is not interested at all in making that same decision. So someone comes to me, they might have an idea of what veganism is, and they might know that they're interested in it. There's something about it that they've been pulled to, and they want to be able to, once they make that choice and start living differently, because you do live differently, then they want to be able to have effective conversations and maintain relationships, or be able to work within relationships, kind of shift some things, but still have that relationship continue in a way that is beneficial to both of the people involved. So they'll come into it needing all of that, and they leave at the very least with a solid understanding of veganism, why they have made the change, what it means to them, and understanding how to communicate best for them so that they can show up as a vegan, be effective, and not alienate the people who are around them who are maybe making different choices.
It's so good, this idea of reminding people what they are doing, what they think, what they can think, what I can do. I find most of us, especially in the beginning, get very, very, very into other people's business and
Hmm.
what they should be doing. And we see all the problems in their actions.
Oh, yeah.
or or we think impossible because they won't do it too.
Hmm. Yeah, but you never know. That's the most powerful thing about making the choice and then just showing up as a vegan. You have no idea who's watching and who is taking in what you're doing, what you're saying, the choices you're making. And even if they're not consciously thinking, maybe I want to live like Michelle does, it's still percolating in the back. And it might come out. They might hear something from someone else or see something, read a book, hear a talk, and it clicks. But you were that first one to kind of plant that seed in them. So it's really powerful when we feel like it's so big and it's overwhelming to be vegan or to try to get people to understand what we're doing. It's these little micro moments that we're not even aware, that we're making an impact. And so I also try to kind of remove a lot of that. When you first go, I know I first went vegetarian and I wanted to tell everyone what they were contributing to by eating meat. And I couldn't help myself but to be like, hey, here's why you shouldn't do that anymore. And it was not effective. And so I've learned what works for me, how people react to me, and I've tweaked that. And now my communication style around it is so much different.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I I've told you in the past I have a bunch of grandkids. I have one who's really a solid beginning reader, and I have a couple others who are in the very pre-reading space. And I hear from educators and preschool teachers. I hear, you know, you have to be exposed to an idea many, many, many times. You have to see parts of it. You have to, before that brain puts together the solution for it.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to understand things backwards. When we're looking back on it, we see the end result. We don't see all the little things, the mommy pointing to something on a sign, dad
Mm-hmm.
or aunt or grandmother, or bringing out a block and singing a song that goes with it. All of this is so cumulative, and it's true with every
Mm-hmm.
part of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
really a learning curve. Now, so these are the individuals you work with coaching, and then you
Mm-hmm.
work with companies.
Yes. Yep. So, one of the things that I think a lot of non vegan businesses haven't yet realized, and some have, is that vegans exist. And it's in their best interest to figure out how to serve them. So there are some restaurants that are very much like, I don't care because what is my vegan? No one even ever asks me for a vegan option. Or I've been open for 5 years and I've had one person request a vegan option. Well, let me tell you why that is. It's because the vegans aren't coming because with the internet, we check your menu first. And those friends that we're going with who are non vegan, who would have been at their establishment, eaten food and paid money and brought in some revenue for that restaurant, they're not going either. And this thing is something that's called the veto vote. So if you're in a group of, let's make it small, 5 people, and there's one vegan, and these other 4 people care and respect for that one vegan, they're going to say, hey, we were thinking about going to Jim's steak shop or whatever, right? And then the vegan says, I checked the menu and they don't even have a plain baked potato for me. I don't want to go here. Here are some other options of not strictly vegan restaurants, but restaurants that are serving the normies, if you will, and the vegans. They have a vegan menu, or maybe they have a couple of options. That vegan will say, let's go here instead. And those 4 people are going to say, okay. And now this restaurant that has vegan options is going to get the revenue from those 5 people instead of the restaurant that said, nobody ever asks me for this, so I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And so they might say, well, if I'm going to accommodate vegans, doesn't that mean I have to have all kinds of weird stuff on in my kitchen that I don't use for anything else? And the answer is no. So what we can do is we look at what a restaurant is already doing and what can we veganize that no one will notice. So if every sauce that this restaurant makes has a chicken base to it, like a chicken stock, we can swap out vegetable stock. It's going to save the restaurant money. They know how to cook, so it's not going to taste terrible, right? And if it was, say, like a tomato sauce that had a chicken stock, now that tomato sauce, everyone can eat it. You can accommodate a vegan, you can accommodate a vegetarian. And now the meat eater or pre-vegan, if you will be able to eat that as well. So it's these little swaps that we can look at where a restaurant can save some money, but also they don't have to have, this is my vegan stock, this is my chicken stock, and they can save space in the kitchen and again, be able to accommodate more people. And then look at the other ingredients that you have. Are all of your side dishes vegetable based? So now maybe we're not putting them in butter. Maybe olive oil is a better option. Maybe we use a vegan butter depending on the flavor that we're going for. Vegan butters are really good now. And you have a lot of options that do have a very buttery, salty flavor that wouldn't taste weird to someone who's never had vegan butter before. And so these are, if we look at what other vegetables and things do we have, how can we turn that into an interesting dish that is nourishing and exciting for a vegan? So we can assess the full menu and pull out stuff they're already buying. So maybe at the end of this menu assessment, we do determine, hey, you don't really have a solid vegan protein. Let's look at incorporating tofu, or, because that is one that people kind of know about, right? You throw tempeh or seitan onto your menu, and a lot of people who are pre-vegan may not be familiar with that, and it might not be interesting to them. But tofu is something that is less scary for a lot of people. And so if we just bring in some tofu, now we've made some other swaps. We're using more vegetables. They're having less waste in the kitchen, less food waste. So it balances out bringing in, some tofu, and we're making exciting dishes for vegans. So they're interested. And there are ways that we can look at veganizing a popular dessert. Maybe it's a matter of simply swapping out oat milk from the cow's milk. And so even if you still make that traditional cow's milk based dessert, you can easily have all of the other ingredients in there be vegan. The chocolate doesn't have milk in it, that kind of stuff. And now you also have a vegan dessert, because as excited as we as vegans are to look at a menu and see that there's a pretty cool entree option, we would love to be able to enjoy like everyone else. Let's get an appetizer. Let's have our entree. Let's have a vegan dessert. And even if a restaurant offers only one of each of those things, that just feels so much more caring and interested. The vegans are excited to go. The pre-vegans with them are ready to go because the menu looks normal, regular to them as well. And it just is a such better way to be inclusive. And the restaurants are then able to bring in more money.
Yeah, and it is so true, and it seems so obvious to me, and I'm so stunned when I run into people that are still I can only I know sometimes it's just not thinking about it and being busy as we all are, and trying to just get through the day without adding something to our plate, but it is really not that hard, and it's amazing the places that you would think. Like, I understand McDonald's. I mean, I understand. Right. It's not there. They don't care. But the places that are fine dining establishments that still are just really dragging their feet. And, I've had both situations where I've sat down in a nice restaurant, kind of really a fine place. And I've had both situations where, assuming that, well, they're cooking here, so they can cook some vegetables for me, a grain, a
Hmm.
bean, what I don't want to but what could you make me? And I've had the situation where people are like, no, all the vegetables are already pre-cooked with either stock or with, I'm like, really? I mean,
Hmm.
you really wouldn't keep any, because what if somebody comes in that is maybe halal or kosher, and you have
Hmm.
meat stocks I mean, it's not just it's not
Right.
just the 1 or 3% that we are as vegans and or vegetarians. And then I've had the other situation where people go, of course we cook everything to order here. Like what kind of places do you go to, madam, that they can't
Right.
make you a vegan meal? So it there's clearly not one point of view in this, and it's interesting. And so again, this is communication and trying to help people communicate.
Yes, absolutely. And my most effective, and not just mine, I think the most effective is storytelling. And when people hear me say that, they're like, don't take me on a hero's journey to get me to add a vegan option to my restaurant menu, okay? But that's not what I mean. I mean that, like, talking through, looking at the menu. Your menu tells a story. You're already storytelling. So, what are you saying with this menu? And what can we add to it? How can we bring a different element into the story by taking the story you've already created? And every once in a while, you'll find a restaurant that's like, and this hasn't happened with me, but with other vegan hospitality consultants, where they're like, we're ready to just make a change. Let's do the whole thing. Let's redo the menu and make it everything vegan. And maybe we want now the option, instead of you can make this vegan, someone then can add an animal protein to an already vegan dish. I would love for that to happen everywhere, right? Then we can all eat everywhere, because you made a really good point, Michelle. It's not just about how can we accommodate vegans. There are so many allergies. There are people who are following different dietary guidelines for so many different reasons, religious, allergies, whatever it is. And so if we can save the restaurant money, because we know how difficult it is to run a restaurant. I can remember from the time I was a child. I don't know why people were telling me that it's difficult to run a restaurant, but even as a little kid, I remember hearing like,
Don't
"Oh,
start a
most restaurants
restaurant,
fail in the
Kimberly.
first 5 years." Yeah, it's just it's not an easy thing to do, and the people who are successful at it, I think, are able to kind of tweak and make changes and accept that things change, the world changes, people change. What we need is different. And when they can see that, then I think that they're on their way to like maintaining a successful business. But it does come down, I think, to storytelling. I think anytime, whether we're talking about we just want to tell someone about our veganism. Maybe we're not trying to change anyone, but it's such a part of who we are. And we meet a new person, we want them to know about this piece. Even being vegetarian, I was dating back then. I was in like my 20s, and I remember there was a guy who was like, "I just want you to eat this pork chop off my plate. Like I want to share my food." And I, despite that, wanted him to know about why I was vegetarian. And ultimately, it didn't work out because it was really important that I was eating pork chops off his plate, and I wasn't willing to do it. So it ended. But we want to share this piece of who we are, and being able to tell it in an interesting way and being honest, coming from our hearts. I think that is the most effective way, whether we're talking to a business owner, a friend, someone who comes to us and says, "I heard that you're vegan. What does that mean?" And maybe they either want to, be mean to you about it, or they want to learn themselves. Being able to effectively communicate what we need, who we are. We need more of that in the world. And I think if we can lean on that, we can make such a big difference in our movement and just kind of in the world as a whole.
Amen. All of the above. It's and that storytelling we're doing all the time in our brains, in our heads. Like
Yeah.
somebody who is running a kitchen, a chef, is thinking impossible. This is not going to happen. They'll never be happy. Then what am I supposed to do? I can't do custom meals for every single person who walks in. That's the story they're telling themselves
Mm-hmm.
until somebody maybe comes and simplifies a little bit and says, can you keep your vegetables, just a few vegetables that are on the menu
Mm-hmm.
already there? Can you, if you have a lunch place, can you have a few frozen vegan burgers that are just there?
Yep.
It's not sucking up your entire kitchen. So it's looking for little places, and even if you just have a couple things, I've been in places where they say we don't really have vegan options, but we have this, and they
Mm-hmm.
say this, and we can bring you this, and so
Yep.
you take it or leave it, but at least that shows somebody's made, and over time, if that becomes popular, and if they see people
Mm-hmm.
happy, they go, well, I
Yeah.
guess we could make sure that there's a sorbet
Mm-hmm.
on the menu, and that's not going to take up. It's just in the freezer. It's not going to take up any
Right.
reason. And lots of people like sorbets that aren't vegan.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I never remember if sorbet always or doesn't. You have to always ask about these things whether there's any dairy in them.
Yeah.
So listeners, don't just go say sorbet and know that it's vegan. I have no idea. You still
Right.
have to ask.
Yes.
So this storytelling and and coaching, both of us, we probably went through different coaching programs, but coaching is about noticing where that story shows up for you and that it's
Mm-hmm.
empowering, or where the story shows up for you and it's a drag.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are some stories that you hear from people, either in business or personally, that can be turned around a little bit or tweaked a little bit?
My favorite one from an individual is always, I can't do this. I can't actually go vegan. And the fact that they're even talking to me means that something behind that story is telling them that they can, and
Mm.
they just haven't realized it yet. So it's helping people get out of their own way and try to hear that story differently, or maybe even rewrite it. We feel like we can't do something for so many reasons. It's so much more than just, I could never go vegan. It's too hard. It's not, it's, my family would never go for it. Whatever reasons they pull out, it's so much deeper than that, that makes them think it's, a moment when they were a child and someone said, you can't do that. And then they couldn't do it. They failed and they didn't try again because it was the first time they'd ever done the thing. Of course, you're not an expert the first time you do anything. We're supposed to be messy at first. We're supposed to make mistakes. That's how we learn. We should be encouraged, and a lot of children are not encouraged to make mistakes or do things messy, so that they have the opportunity to learn. And we bring those stories and those tapes of that person in your life that was always just, no, you can't, you can't. And it just replays. And we do it long enough where it's not even that person's voice anymore. It's your own. And as scary and sad as that can feel and be sometimes, it's super empowering because that's in your head. You can actually make that change. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. And when we do it, there is nothing that we can't be capable of if we're willing to like rewrite that story, hear something different, and be a little messy at first.
The process of just recognizing when something is a story is even just that, going, oh, I hear myself saying, well, like you said at the beginning of the hour, you said, it's the only thing I've stuck with,
Right.
really?
Totally untrue.
Yeah. And it's not to make anybody wrong. It's to just remind we all literally, all of us do this. Now, there are some people like my husband who tells stories in his head, which are how Grady is. He's clearly his mother's favorite from from before birth. He is just completely, there's no one with better self-talk than my husband. And I remember when I first, before I kind of understood any of this years and years ago, as a young, when we were dating, I would just listen to him and go, what must that be like to just
Right?
assume that your mistakes are positive and
Yeah.
I don't know how we do that, but just noticing when we're saying the opposite, we're making our
hmm
mistakes mean something catastrophic about ourselves or permanent or about ourselves,
Right.
or that, oh, I would love to do that, but too late, too hard,
hmm
can't do it.
Yep.
I've never stuck with anything in my life. I hear that from not just you, I've heard that from
hmm
many, many people. So our listeners typically are in the middle, or sometimes I say not in the first flush of youth. We are people who have a lot of stories we've been saying. We have a lot of
hmm
stories we've reinforced in our behavior for years and years. And some of us are really pushing in on veganism or plant based lifestyle, and others are just midlife thinking, okay, how am I tweaking this second act or third act in some cases? What are what can we offer them? What can you offer them, Kimberly, in terms of a thought, like a thought experiment to look for in terms
Hmm.
of moving forward?
Hmm. I love that. I think when you mention that some people are leaning into veganism or plant-based or just trying to kind of tweak that, do it. You can do it. And there's whether you want to work with someone like you, Michelle, or like me, or you love to just find stuff on the internet and find your inspiration and your accountability and your motivation from there. There's tons of free stuff out there. Just dive in.
Mm.
What do you have to lose, right? We're we're getting older every day and we are making if you're willing to make this big, important choice and change, just dive in and start learning. You know, you can go at your own pace, but like commit to it, commit to being part of it and learning and growing and changing and see where it takes you. That has been the biggest thing for me. When I joined Toastmasters, I thought this is going to get me better at giving these talks over the phone at work and comfortable in front of people to talk about coaching. What it has given me, though, that I had no idea was my voice. It's given me the opportunity to share the deepest, most meaningful parts of me and give that to the world for someone who needs to hear it, someone who needs that motivation to do it themselves. I had no idea what I was going to get from all of this. And I can't even put into words how thankful I am every day that I am here and able to join people like you on your podcast and have people like you join my podcast. And we don't know what beautiful, incredible things are coming next. And if we just are willing to be open to it, that really, I think, oof,
Mm.
just be open to it.
Yeah,
Dive in and see where it takes you.
I think that's so true. You know, the time goes by either way.
Yeah.
and things are hard and messy either way.
hmm
So we're not avoiding a tough time really by not trying things that really matter to us or that we're interested in. Sometimes I think just
hmm
being interested in, people think, well, just being interested, am I going to change my entire life? Am I going to completely, upend our traditions and our family life and the people I hang with and how we hang with them? And like, yeah, maybe one meal at a time or one
hmm
choice at a time.
Yeah.
People, we can't, nobody begins as a vegan, I don't think.
Right. Yeah. Those few people who are raised from birth or from conception having been vegan, amazing for them. But most of us did not have that opportunity. And we did have to do it at our own pace and figure it out. And, the thing is, there will be people in your life, more likely than not, that maybe won't be part of your life anymore. But you'll meet new people. And the people who are already there, that love and respect and are willing to accept you always for who you are, they'll still be there.
Yeah, and there are other
Yeah.
things they would have rejected you over too.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yes. If someone is so upset over you deciding to go vegan or even just following a plant-based diet, that relationship was not long-term anyway.
So for podcasting, what's something you have learned? Because I want to respect your time and let you move on with your day, Kimberly. But did you bring the hummus? Tell me
Mhm.
something about what you'd like to accomplish. Because I know with my podcast, it's for people who never work with me one on one or who want to
Mhm.
are thinking about it, want to get to know me a little bit better. What are you trying to accomplish with Did you bring the hummus?
Yeah. So the mission of Did You Bring the Hummus is to inspire listeners to go vegan through powerful stories and meaningful conversation. Every interview that I do begins with the question, share with me your vegan journey. And we end talking about hummus. And then in the middle is just celebrating vegan life and what that vegan who I'm interviewing at that time is doing, or something that's meaningful to them in their business, in their world, or some message that we want to share. So the interviews are always kind of just demonstrating, look at what all these different vegans are doing. We all have the same mission at the end of the day. We're all working toward the same thing, but boy, are we doing it in so many different ways. So, someone who feels like, I don't know if I fit in there, or that's not really for me, or, my expertise is all tech. How is that related to veganism? Trust me, you'll find it because it is. And my individual episodes are always stories to just kind of connect you to an aspect of veganism, to a specific animal or someone that whose story needs to be told. And so it's kind of a mix of a few things, but ultimately I would just love for someone to hear a story and go, Michelle went vegan and I feel connected to her after listening to her episode. I wonder if that's for me too.
And what did you need to know? What valuable piece of wisdom does Kimberly Winters today in we're recording this at the end of March 2025, back in 2020,
Hmm.
what could she have told you when you were back then?
Um, I wish that I had thought further along that I was actually going to love the podcast and do it and keep going, because the consistency piece is so important. And I found that I was doing episodes last minute to try to make, I told people it's going to come out on Mondays, got to make sure it comes out on a Monday. And so Sunday night, I'm scrambling. What am I going to talk about? Is it edited? Is it okay? Because I still do all of my editing and producing myself. So I've got to make sure that I've got it all done. So now the biggest lesson that I've learned podcasting, being effective, showing up for my listeners in a meaningful way, is that I am prepared. I do a backlog of episodes. I produce the episodes and schedule them, then announce a season, and we work through the season. And the episodes are ready to go well before they're scheduled to be released. That has been my biggest learning from a podcaster perspective. And I'd love for anyone interested in podcasting to really take that to heart and make sure that you are prepared and ready so you're not doing last minute episodes.
Yeah, and that doesn't have to be onerous. It doesn't have to be. It sounds
Right.
awful, right? I mean, you need to be prepared.
I know. Oh, Kimberly, so boring.
That's terrible, but it's actually fun, and but it's one of those things. One of my themes for the last year has been systems, putting systems in place, and just like being a vegan, you need to have some systems. They don't
Yeah.
have to be all the systems. They don't have to be the perfect system, right?
Mhm.
What are some systems that are not for the podcast that make your life as a vegan a little more streamlined? Would you say? People hear mine all the time.
Meal planning, and not in like a very rigid, and I don't batch cook, but just having an idea of like, these are kind of the themes. Sometimes we'll do themed weeks, like burger night and taco night and all of that. And then we look at the fridge and we know what we can kind of pull together, and having sauces on hand, whether you've made them yourself or you love sauces you pick up at the grocery store, that as far as food makes life really easy. I find that veganism in the rest of my life, I don't even think about it. It just is. So I wonder what that system is.
Practice,
I'm not
probably. You
sure.
probably just have found something that works and you stay with it. But
Yeah. And always read, I still always read labels.
yeah,
Even if I've been buying the same product for the last 20 years, you never know when they're going to change the formula. So
they
I'm
do.
still always reading labels. Maybe that's the thing. That's the system, label reading across
Mm.
everything.
Because you'll learn something.
Yeah,
And
that
yeah,
is true.
you'll learn something. Kimberly, this is so valuable. I want everyone to listen and subscribe, and you make sure you follow, because when a podcast is on a season,
Hmm.
sometimes if you don't follow it, you might, when they're a little bit on hiatus, you can kind of drop off. So you want to make
Yeah.
sure that they subscribe on whatever platform that they're on, that they listen to podcasts on. They want to make sure that they subscribe to Did You Bring the Hummus, so that when the season shows up, you are there, they're loaded, they're ready.
Yeah.
All the wisdom is right there.
Yes, that is an excellent point.
Yeah, it's important. It's important because and that way it reminds you, your phone reminds you, and you can
Hmm.
share it with people. There's so many great things you can do with that phone these days. People
Yeah,
complain about social media and the phone, but there's a lot of good you can do in the world with it.
absolutely.
Kimberly, it's such a delight to have you with us. Everybody listen to Did You Bring the Hummus? And just before you go, did you bring the hummus?
I don't have any with me right here at my desk, but there is some downstairs in the fridge.
Okay, always.
Always bringing the hummus.
Kimberly Winters, thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle.
So, so, what did you think about Kimberly Winters? If there is a theme on Veg Your Best, it has to be the idea that most of us have no idea what we're capable of until we begin, until we make friends with the idea of being uncomfortable, nervous, afraid of judgment, afraid of failing, afraid of people saying, "What the heck are you doing?" I'm so grateful to Kimberly for coming on the podcast, for sharing her journey from Toastmasters, nervous Toastmasters beginnings to podcasting confidence, and for her wisdom, which she really does have a lot of wisdom to share on vegan communication, community, and the power of simply showing up. Kimberly reminds us that even if you think you can't do it, the fact is, that you're just considering it, and that means you probably can, and at least can do a lot more than you think. And it's 100% okay to be messy while you figure it out. Kimberly's podcast, Did You Bring the Hummus?, starts every interview with a vegan journey and ends with hummus because, as she says, there's always some in the fridge, even if it's not at her desk. And the best way to get to know more about Kimberly is to listen to some of those 100 episodes in her back catalog. Anyway, thank you so much to Kimberly Winters, and I recommend you all look her up on Instagram and subscribe to Did You Bring the Hummus? And look for me to be a guest over there on Did You Bring the Hummus in the year ahead. And remember, following, liking, sharing, supporting vegan and plant-based podcasts and social media accounts, that's another super powerful, helpful way for you to veg your best. Veg Your Best podcast production, music, and editing by Charlie Weinshank. Thanks, Charlie. Before you go, it would mean so much to me and the Veg Your Best team if you would hit subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, or share with someone you think might be interested. Something about algorithms, it helps bump us up a little in the rankings, and that's the best way to help others find the podcast and for us to find our audience. So, until next week, make it easy and veg your best.